Subscribe to Infidelity Tales Lab for more stories. Now, let's begin this one. Chapter 1. The Before. Denver Sherman stood in the rain outside what used to be his home, watching through the window as his wife of 7 years laughed at something on her phone. He'd left work early to surprise her with anniversary dinner reservations. Instead, he discovered text messages on the iPad they shared, messages that shredded his world into confetti. Can't wait until this is over. Den's so trusting, it's almost sad. 2 more months, and we'll have everything we need. The reply from a number saved only as R made his blood freeze. Good. The sample collection is nearly complete. Once we confirm the markers, you can initiate the exit strategy. You've done well, V. Denver wasn't a violent man. At 35, he'd built a quiet life as a biomedical engineer at Preston Technologies, designing diagnostic equipment. He believed in logic, process, evidence. But standing in that rain, phone trembling in his hand, he felt something primal awaken. He'd met Victoria Welch at a medical conference 4 years ago. She'd been magnetic, sharp-witted, beautiful, with auburn hair and eyes that seemed to see right through him. She worked in pharmaceutical sales, she'd said. They married quickly, maybe too quickly. His friends had called it a whirlwind romance. His mother, rest her soul, had called it something else entirely before she died. That girl looks at you like you're a puzzle she's solving, not a man she loves. He dismissed it as maternal overprotection. Now, 3 years after his mother's death, her words echoed like prophecy. Denver didn't confront Victoria that night. Instead, he did what he did best. He investigated. He created a hidden partition on his computer, began documenting everything. Phone records, bank statements. That mysterious R sent money to Victoria's separate account monthly, $5,000, like clockwork. The deposit started 8 months before they met. For years, their entire relationship had been a transaction. The evidence pointed to Rex Huerta, CEO of Helix Biosolutions, a pharmaceutical giant with government contracts worth billions. Denver found photos of them together at galas, her hand possessively on his arm, dated 2 months before she'd accidentally bumped into Denver at that conference. But he didn't understand why. He was nobody special, middle-class salary, no inheritance, no connections. What could they possibly want from him? He spent weeks digging deeper, sleeping on his office couch, telling Victoria he had a critical project deadline. She seemed relieved by his absence, which told him everything. In the Preston Technologies archives, he discovered something that made his skin crawl. 7 years ago, Preston had contracted with Helix to develop a rapid genetic screening device. Denver had led the engineering team. They'd tested thousands of blood samples, searching for specific genetic markers related to immune response. The project was suddenly terminated, all data classified, and everyone involved signed ironclad NDAs with penalty clauses that could bankrupt families for generations. Denver had forgotten about it, just another corporate black hole where innovation went to die. Until he cross-referenced dates. The project ended 3 weeks before he met Victoria. His hands shook as he pulled up old project files he'd backed up on a personal drive, a violation of his NDA, but he'd been young and proud of his work. The search criteria had been oddly specific, a rare genetic variant in the HLA-B gene found in less than 0.001% of the population. The project notes mentioned previous incident, 1987, and immunity confirmation required. Denver ran a search for 1987 biological incidents. Most results were redacted or classified, but he found a buried CDC report about a mysterious outbreak in a small Montana town called Redemption Falls. 47 people died in 3 days. The official cause, contaminated water supply. The unofficial whispers online, bioweapon tests gone wrong. One survivor was documented. A 12-year-old boy who should have died, but didn't. Denver pulled up his own birth certificate. Born December 1989 in Billings, Montana. His parents had moved to California when he was 2. They'd never talked about Montana, always changed the subject when he asked. He did the math. If he was born in 1989 and the incident was 1987, his mother would have been pregnant with him during the outbreak. The next morning, He drove to his father's house in Sacramento. Arthur Sherman was 73 now, retired from the Postal Service, spending his days in a garden that his late wife had planted. "Dad," Denver said, sitting across from him at the kitchen table, "I need to know about Montana." About 1987. His father's coffee cup stopped halfway to his lips. The color drained from his weathered face. "Who told you?" "Nobody told me. I found out." Denver leaned forward. "What happened in Redemption Falls?" Arthur Sherman set down his cup with shaking hands. "Your mother made me promise never to tell you. She wanted you to have a normal life. My life is currently anything but normal. Please." The old man was silent for a long moment, staring at his wife's photo on the wall. Then he began to speak. "We lived in Redemption Falls. Your mother was 3 months pregnant with you. It started on a Tuesday morning, people getting sick. Not regular sick. Hemorrhaging, seizures, death within hours. The government rolled in by Wednesday night, quarantined the whole town. Hazmat suits, military checkpoints, the works." He paused, eyes distant with memory. 47 people died. Your mother got sick too. They told me to prepare for the worst, that she and the baby wouldn't make it. But then, she just got better. Overnight. Like nothing had happened. You were fine too, growing strong. They kept us for 3 more weeks, running tests. So many tests. Denver's chest tightened. What did they find? They never told us. Just said we were free to go, gave us a check for $50,000, which was a fortune back then, and made us sign papers saying we'd never talk about it. We moved to California, started over. Your mother was paranoid for years, thought they were watching us." He looked at Denver with tears in his eyes. "Were they?" All this time, Denver thought of Victoria, of Rex Huerta, of 4 years of manufactured love. "Yeah, Dad, they were." Chapter 2. The Fall. Denver filed for divorce the next day. Victoria's mask slipped immediately. "You're making a mistake," she said, standing in their living room with an expression of calculated concern that now looked grotesque to him. "Whatever you think is happening. I know exactly what's happening." He kept his voice level, though rage burned in his chest. "I know about Rex. I know about the payments. I know about the genetic markers." Something flickered in her eyes, fear, then cold calculation. "You don't know anything. And if you're smart, you'll keep it that way." She stepped closer, her voice dropping. "Denver, there are things in motion you can't possibly understand. People who make problems disappear. Sign the papers, take your share, and walk away." "My share?" He laughed bitterly. "Of what? The house I bought? The life I built while you were running lab experiments on me in my sleep?" Her jaw tightened. "You're being dramatic." "Am I?" He pulled out his phone, showed her the screenshots he'd compiled. Bank records. Emails he'd recovered from her deleted folders using forensic software. Photos of her and Rex from before they'd met. Victoria's composure cracked. "You hack my accounts? That's illegal. So is fraud. Conspiracy. Whatever the hell you've been doing." He pocketed his phone. "I've copied everything to secure servers. If anything happens to me, it all goes public. My lawyer has instructions." It was a bluff. He hadn't sent anything to anyone yet. But she didn't know that. "You're playing with forces you don't comprehend," she hissed. "Rex has connections everywhere. Government, corporate, legal. You're a mid-level engineer with a persecution complex. Who do you think they'll believe? I guess we'll find out." The divorce proceedings became warfare. Victoria hired Christopher Logan, a shark of an attorney known for destroying opponents. She claimed Denver was mentally unstable, abusive, paranoid. She filed restraining orders. She emptied their joint accounts before he could freeze them. $127,000 vanished overnight. Denver's attorney, an overworked public defender named Solomon Jones, was outmatched from the start. "They're going scorched earth," Solomon told him in a courthouse hallway. "I'm doing my best, but Logan has resources I can't compete with." The judge is sympathetic to Victoria's abuse claims, which are complete fabrications. "I know, but without proof." Solomon looked exhausted. "Denver, maybe you should consider settling. Take what you can and move on." But Denver couldn't move on, because the more Victoria fought to destroy him, the more certain he became that this was about more than money or pride. They needed him broke, discredited, isolated. They needed him desperate. The final hearing was a massacre. Judge Armand Tran awarded Victoria the house, the cars, and most of their assets based on her claims of emotional abuse and financial control. Denver was left with his clothes, his work laptop, and $8,000 in an old savings account Victoria hadn't found. This court finds the respondent's behavior pattern concerning. Judge Tran intoned, looking at Denver like he was something scraped off a shoe. The restraining order will remain in effect. The respondent is ordered to vacate the marital residence within 72 hours. Denver sat frozen as his life was legally demolished. Victoria smiled from across the courtroom, and beside her, in the back row, sat Rex Huerta himself. Tall, silver-haired, immaculate in a $10,000 suit. He caught Denver's eye and gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. A message, we won. Denver rented a studio apartment in a rough part of Sacramento, the kind of place where sirens were lullabies and broken dreams were currency. $1,400 a month ate through his savings like acid. He went to work, came home, and tried to understand what his life had become. Then Preston Technologies fired him. Due to recent personal conduct issues and violation of company policy, his supervisor Augustus Bentley said, not meeting his eyes. Denver knew Rex Huerta's tentacles reached far. Preston Technologies held several Helix contracts worth millions. His LinkedIn was flooded with job rejections within hours of posting his resume, like he'd been blacklisted industry-wide. 2 weeks later, his landlord, a man named Vaughn Cherry who smelled perpetually of gin, knocked on his door. Rent's late, Sherman. I have until the 5th. Yeah, well, I'm selling the building. New owners want everyone out. You got 30 days. Denver knew it was a lie. But what could he do? He called tenant rights lawyers. None would take his case. More phantom connections to Rex Huerta, more doors slamming shut. On day 29, Vaughn Cherry showed up with 2 police officers and an eviction notice. Let's make this easy, Cherry said, grinning with brown teeth. Denver packed what little he owned into his aging Honda Civic. He slept in the car for 3 nights, showering at a 24-hour gym, eating dollar menu items, and watching his bank account dwindle to double digits. On the 4th night, parked behind a closed shopping center, Denver Sherman stared at his reflection in the rearview mirror. Stubble covered his jaw. His eyes were hollow. He looked like a ghost. He thought about his mother, about her paranoia that now seemed like wisdom. He thought about his father's face when he'd told him the truth. He thought about Victoria's smile in that courtroom. Then he thought about that $60 blood donation flyer taped to the gym bulletin board. Chapter 3, The Discovery. The Plasma Donation Center on Franklin Boulevard looked exactly like what it was, a place where desperation met medical economics. Faded linoleum, fluorescent lights that hummed like dying insects, and a waiting room filled with people who'd run out of options. Denver filled out the paperwork with hands that hadn't been steady in weeks. The intake nurse, a tired woman named Nellie Christian, barely looked at him as she checked his vitals. You're a first-timer? Yes. It'll take about 90 minutes. You get $60 on a prepaid card. She handed him a laminated instruction sheet. Room 3. The lab technician who prepped him was younger than the nurse, maybe late 20s, with sharp eyes and careful hands. Her name tag read Lana McBride. She inserted the needle with practiced efficiency. First time? She asked, making conversation as his blood flowed into collection tubes. That obvious? You look too educated to be here. Not cruel, just observant. What happened? Denver surprised himself by answering. Divorce. Job loss. The usual American dream implosion. Lana nodded sympathetically. I'm a med student. This pays better than serving coffee. She labeled his tubes with a barcode. Your blood gets screened for diseases, then sold to pharmaceutical companies for research. Most people don't know that. Something in her words triggered a memory. What kind of research? Everything. Drug testing, vaccine development, genetic studies. She placed his tubes in a tray. Some places pay extra if you have rare blood types or markers. Not here, though. We're basic. The donation finished. Denver took his $60 card and was headed for the door when he heard Lana's voice, sharp with surprise. Wait, Mr. Sherman? Can you come back here, please? He turned. Through the window of the lab room, he saw her staring at a computer screen, her face pale. Is something wrong? I need you to stay here for a moment. Her voice was unsteady. Don't leave. I need to run this again. Run what again? She didn't answer. Her hands shook as she drew another small vial of his blood. She ran it through a different machine, waited for results, then ran it again. Oh my God, she whispered. What? Do I have a disease? Lana looked at him with an expression he couldn't read. Fear mixed with awe. Stay here. Don't leave. Please. She practically ran out of the room, locking the door behind her. Denver stood there, confusion morphing into alarm. Through the small window, he saw her on the phone, speaking urgently to someone. 5 minutes passed. 10. Then the front door burst open. 5 people in business suits rushed in like a tactical team. They moved with military precision, flanking Lana's desk where she held out Denver's test results with shaking hands. The oldest one, a man in his 60s with iron-gray hair and a face like carved granite, took the papers. Irving Walker read the results, and Denver saw something extraordinary happen. A man who looked like he'd witnessed every horror the world could offer actually stumbled backward. Impossible, Walker whispered. He looked up at Lana. You ran it twice? 3 times. Different machines. Same result. Walker's eyes found Denver through the window. Get him. Now. 2 of the suited figures moved toward the door. Denver's survival instincts, dormant for so long under the weight of defeat, suddenly screamed to life. He looked around the room. 1 door locked. 1 window, reinforced glass. He grabbed the rolling chair and hurled it at the window. The glass cracked, but didn't break. The door burst open. Denver grabbed a metal supply tray and swung it wildly, catching one of the suits in the temple. The man went down hard. Mr. Sherman, we're not here to hurt you. Walker shouted from the doorway. We need to talk. Like you talked to my wife? Like you talked to my employers? Denver backed into a corner, adrenaline flooding his system. Stay back. Walker held up his hands, and something in his expression shifted from authority to something almost like desperation. You don't understand what you are, what you carry. We saw this last in 1987. The year. Denver froze. Montana. Redemption Falls. Walker's eyes widened fractionally. You know, I know enough. Then you know you're in danger. Rex Huerta has been searching for you for 7 years. Your blood. Walker stepped closer, slowly, like approaching a spooked animal. Your blood contains complete immunity to a bioweapon that killed 47 people. The only natural immunity we've ever documented. Your mother survived it while pregnant with you. The antibodies passed to you in utero, then mutated, evolved. Denver's mind reeled. What does that mean? It means, Walker said quietly, that your genetic code is worth more than the GDP of small nations. It means Huerta's company has been trying to synthesize what you have naturally for decades. It means your wife wasn't just stealing from you. She was collecting samples to sell to the highest bidder. Who are you? Department of Defense, Special Projects Division. Walker pulled out credentials that looked legitimate. We've been monitoring Helix Biosolutions for years. We lost track of you after your family moved. When you entered the system today, flags went off everywhere. He glanced at Lana. This facility is supposed to screen for normal diseases. But Ms. McBride here accidentally ran an extended genetic panel. She's a very thorough medical student. Lana looked terrified. I didn't know. You did nothing wrong. Walker turned back to Denver. But now Helix knows too. The system is networked. The moment your results hit the database, their algorithms flagged it. Rex Huerta knows you're here. He knows what you have. As if summoned by prophecy, Denver's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. We know where you are. Come willingly and we'll make you comfortable. Run, and you'll wish you died in Montana with the others. Walker saw his expression. They're already coming, aren't they? Denver nodded, something cold and hard forming in his chest. For weeks, he'd been a victim, pushed, manipulated, destroyed by forces he couldn't fight. But victims had nothing to lose. He looked at Walker. What do they want with my blood? To weaponize it. To create a delivery system that can bypass the immunity you carry. to make the Redemption Falls event look like a practice run. Walker's expression was grim. Helix has Pentagon contracts for biodefense, but our intelligence suggests they're selling to foreign actors. This immunity is the missing piece of their research. And what do you want? Walker met his eyes steadily. To stop them, and we need your help. Denver laughed bitterly. I'm homeless. Broke. Everyone I trusted betrayed me. What could I possibly do? You could let me help you become the thing they fear most. Walker extended his hand. A man with nothing left to lose is the most dangerous weapon in the world. And Mr. Sherman, you're not just any man. You're bulletproof to their greatest weapon. That makes you invaluable. What are you proposing? Revenge, Walker said simply. We give you resources, protection, training. In exchange, you help us bring down Helix from the inside, starting with Rex Huerta and your wife. Denver looked at Walker's outstretched hand. Outside, he heard sirens approaching, multiple vehicles moving fast. He thought about his mother's warning, his father's tears, Victoria's smile, for years of lies, the careful dismantling of his entire life. Then he thought about becoming something else, something that bites back. Denver Sherman shook Irving Walker's hand. Tell me what I need to do. Walker smiled grimly. First, we get you out of here. Then we teach you how to fight back. Welcome to the war, Mr. Sherman. Hope you're ready to win it. As they rushed out the back exit, Denver glanced back at the donation center one last time. He'd walked in desperate and broken, worth $60 in plasma. He was walking out as a weapon. Chapter 4. The Safe House. The Safe House was a nondescript ranch home in Davis, 30 minutes from Sacramento. Walker drove while Denver sat in the back with two armed agents, a severe woman named Ray Davenport and a younger man, Corey Cowan, who couldn't stop staring at Denver like he was a museum exhibit. Stop gawking, Ray said flatly. He's not a science experiment. Actually, Walker said from the front, he kind of is. Just not the kind Helix gets to run. Inside, the house looked ordinary until you noticed the reinforced windows, security cameras, and enough communications equipment to run a small war. Denver was led to a living room where a woman in her 40s with sharp features sat reviewing files on 3 different laptops. Denver Sherman, meet Paula Calhoun. She runs intelligence for our operation. Paula looked up, assessed him in 3 seconds, then returned to her screens. Blood sample confirmed genuine. Helix has activated priority response teams. 3 vehicles left their Sacramento facility 18 minutes ago, heading toward Franklin Boulevard. We're clean here, but that window won't last long. Walker sat across from Denver. I need to explain exactly what you're dealing with. In 1987, the Pentagon commissioned a bioweapon project called Raven. The goal was creating a hemorrhagic virus that could be deployed, then neutralized with an antidote. A battlefield weapon with an off switch. He pulled up files on Paula's largest screen. Photos of a small Montana town, people in hazmat suits, body bags. The problem was the antidote didn't work. Not properly. When they tested Raven in Redemption Falls, sold as a vaccine trial to the locals, it killed 47 people in 3 days. The project was scrapped, all data classified, and everyone involved was silenced. Except my mother survived, Denver said. Your mother survived because she was pregnant with you. Somehow, her body developed antibodies we'd never seen before, passed them to you, and they mutated into complete immunity. You're not just resistant to Raven. Your blood actively neutralizes it on contact. We've never seen anything like it in nature or laboratory conditions. Paula turned one screen toward Denver. It showed complex genetic sequences. Your HLA-B variant is unprecedented. Helix has been trying to synthesize it for 30 years. If they succeed, they can create a new version of Raven, deploy it anywhere, and only people with their manufactured immunity survive. The ultimate geopolitical weapon. And Rex Huerta, Denver felt his hands clench. Where does he fit? Rex Huerta, Walker said, was a junior researcher on the original Raven project. He saw the potential before it was shut down. He spent decades climbing through pharmaceutical ranks, building Helix into a biotech giant, all while secretly continuing Raven research under the guise of vaccine development. Pentagon contracts gave him cover and funding. A new photo appeared. Victoria, younger, in military uniform. Denver's breath caught. What? Victoria Welch, Paula said coldly. Army intelligence, discharged after being caught selling classified information. Huerta recruited her 8 years ago. She's his fixer, seduces targets, extracts information, discards them. Your longest con. The room spun. Denver had known Victoria was a lie, but seeing proof, seeing that his entire marriage had been a calculated military operation, felt like being gutted. How many, he whispered, that we know of? You're number 7. Paula pulled up files. Engineers, scientists, military personnel, all with access to information or resources Helix needed. She gets close, extracts what they need, then destroys them so thoroughly they can't fight back. You're the first one who's figured it out. Why 4 years? Why string me along so long? Because they didn't know you were valuable until 2 years ago, Walker explained. Your mother's death triggered a flagged obituary in our system. We were still looking for redemption fall survivors. We started looking for family members. Found you, but Helix found you first. They put surveillance on you, analyzed discarded cups, straws, anything with trace DNA. When they confirmed your genetic markers, Victoria moved from extraction to containment. The divorce, Denver realized, discrediting me, making me homeless, breaking me down, so you donate blood for money, Paula finished. They've been monitoring donation centers, urgent care clinics, anywhere someone desperate might provide samples. They just needed you broken enough to do it. Rage built in Denver's chest, hot and consuming. And you people? Where were you while they were destroying my life? Walker met his anger steadily. Try to get close enough to Helix without tipping them off. We knew they had a source close to you, but we didn't know it was your wife until the divorce proceedings made it obvious. By then, you were already compromised. We've been one step behind this entire time. Until today, Corey Cowan spoke up. Until you walked into that donation center, and their greed made them sloppy. Denver stood, paced the room. Everything made terrible sense now. Every cruelty, every humiliation, it had all been engineered to break him down to exactly this moment. So what happens now? He asked. You keep me locked up? Use me for your own research? No, Walker said firmly. We offer you a choice. We can put you in witness protection, give you a new identity, and you disappear forever. Safe, hidden, but powerless. Or you help us burn Helix to the ground. We've been building a case for years, but we need inside access. Someone Huerta trusts. Someone he thinks is beaten. Walker leaned forward. They believe you're broken. Let's make them believe they've won. Then we hit them where it hurts. Denver thought about Victoria's smile, about Rex Huerta's nod in the courtroom, about his mother's paranoia and his father's tears. What would I have to do? Paula took over. Helix will try to bring you in. They'll offer protection, money, comfort, everything they took from you. They'll want voluntary access to your blood, your genetics, your cooperation. We'll let them think they've recruited you. You go and wired, gather evidence, and expose them. That's insane. They'll kill me. They can't, Corey said, grinning. You're too valuable. You're the only source of natural immunity in the world. They need you alive and cooperative. That's your leverage. And if something goes wrong, then you'll die, Walker said bluntly. But Denver, they've already taken everything from you. Your wife, your home, your career, your reputation. What's left to lose? Denver stared at the photos of Victoria in military uniform, of Rex Huerta smiling in his expensive suit, of his mother's grave marker that these people had been monitoring. I want them destroyed, he said quietly. Not just arrested. Destroyed. Exposed. Humiliated. Everything they did to me, I want done to them 1,000 times over. Walker and Paula exchanged glances. That, Walker said slowly, we can arrange. But you need to understand, this won't be clean or legal. We're talking about taking down people with connections to the highest levels of government and industry. The rules don't apply to them unless we make them apply. I don't care about rules anymore. Good, Paula said, a predatory smile crossing her face. Because neither do we. Welcome to the dark side of justice, Mr. Sherman. Over the next 3 days, Denver received a crash course in corporate espionage and psychological warfare. Paula taught him how to appear broken while gathering intelligence. Ray showed him covert recording techniques. Corey taught him encryption and secure communications. But it was Walker who taught him the most important lesson on the third night as they reviewed Helix's corporate structure. Revenge is a dish best served systematically, Walker said. You don't just want Huerta arrested. You want him exposed in a way that destroys his legacy, his company, his freedom, and his pride. You want Victoria to lose everything she values: status, security, control. You want them to feel exactly what you felt, magnified by public humiliation. How do we do that? Walker smiled coldly. By letting them think they've already won. Then we take it all away, piece by piece, in front of the world. On the morning of the fourth day, Denver's phone rang. Unknown number, but they all knew who it was. He answered. Hello, Mr. Sherman. Rex Huerta's voice was smooth, cultured, with an undercurrent of steel. I believe we have much to discuss. Denver looked at Walker, who nodded. I'm listening. Good, because you have something we need, and we have something you need. Let's stop playing games and negotiate like adults. I'm sending a car to pick you up. 1 hour. Come alone. Come peacefully, and I promise you'll walk away from this conversation wealthier than you've ever dreamed. And if I refuse? A pause. Then your father's house in Sacramento will be very lonely without him. 60-second response time is impressive for a 73-year-old man with a heart condition, don't you think? Denver's blood ran cold. You touch him. I don't want to touch anyone. I want to make a deal. 1 hour, Mr. Sherman. The address is being texted to you now. Don't disappoint me. The line went dead. Denver looked at the team surrounding him. They're threatening my father. Already taken care of, Paula said, typing rapidly. We moved him to a secure VA facility 2 hours ago. What Huerta is watching is an empty house with some very sophisticated decoys. He's bluffing, but he doesn't know that, Walker said, which means you show up, scared for your father, willing to deal. Exactly what we want them to believe. Denver took a shaky breath. This was it, the point of no return. Wire me up, he said. Let's go make a deal with the devil. Chapter 5, The Lion's Den. The car was a black Mercedes with tinted windows. The driver, a man built like a concrete wall, said nothing during the 40-minute drive. Denver wore a wire so sophisticated it was woven into the fabric of his shirt, completely undetectable to standard sweeps. A microscopic camera was embedded in a button. They arrived at Helix Biosolutions headquarters in Pleasanton, a gleaming glass tower that proclaimed success and innovation. Denver had seen it before in trade publications, had even worked on equipment later sold to Helix. The irony wasn't lost on him. Security was airport level. Metal detectors, X-ray scanners, pat-downs. The wire passed through it all, exactly as Paula had promised. Mr. Huerta is waiting on the 15th floor, said a security guard, handing Denver a visitor badge. Elevator to your left. The elevator played soft jazz as it climbed. Denver watched his reflection in the polished doors. A man who looked scared, desperate, beaten. Perfect. The doors opened to reveal a reception area that could have been an art gallery. Original paintings, sculpture, leather furniture worth more than his old car. A receptionist with a practiced smile directed him to a corner office. Rex Huerta stood at floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Bay Area, hands clasped behind his back like a general surveying a battlefield. He didn't turn when Denver entered. The view from here is remarkable, Huerta said. On clear days, you can see San Francisco, Oakland, San Jose, the entire heart of American innovation spread out like a promise. Do you know what I see when I look at this view, Mr. Sherman? Money. Huerta turned, smiling. He was more imposing in person, 6'3", silver hair, perfectly styled, eyes that calculated like computers. Potential. The potential to change history, to shape the future of humanity itself. And you, Denver, may I call you Denver, you hold the key to that future in your blood. You destroyed my life for potential. I did what was necessary. Huerta gestured to a leather chair. Please sit. This doesn't have to be adversarial. In fact, I'm hoping we can become partners. Denver sat, letting his hands shake slightly. Partners? You sent your asset to spy on me for 4 years. You orchestrated my divorce, got me fired, made me homeless. I tested you. Huerta interrupted. I needed to know what kind of man you were, whether you'd break or bend, whether you'd submit or fight. He leaned forward. In Denver, you fought beautifully. Even now, you're fighting. I respect that. It's exactly the quality I need in someone I'm about to make extraordinarily wealthy. My father is perfectly safe. A motivation tactic, nothing more. I'm not a monster, despite what you might think. I'm a businessman who recognizes value. Huerta poured 2 glasses of scotch from a crystal decanter. Your genetic code is worth billions, perhaps trillions. Do you understand that? You're not a person to me. You're a miracle of evolution that happened to occur in human form. That's supposed to make me feel better? It should make you feel powerful. Huerta pushed a glass toward Denver. Victoria's job was to get close to you, yes. To monitor you, gain your trust, collect samples. But the divorce? The destruction? That was improvised after we confirmed your markers. We needed you desperate enough to access public systems where we could sample you. It worked perfectly. Denver gripped the glass, letting anger show. You're proud of ruining my life? I'm proud of achieving objectives. Huerta sipped his scotch. But now we're past that phase. I don't need you desperate anymore. I need you cooperative. So here's my offer. $10 million, immediate transfer. A house anywhere you want. A VP position at Helix developing immunity therapies. That's not a lie. We genuinely need someone with your engineering background. And all I ask in return is access to your blood. Regular samples, maybe bone marrow if needed, all under medical supervision. You live like a king. We save the world. Everyone wins. Save the world. Denver laughed harshly. You're making bioweapons. I'm making defenses against bioweapons. Huerta corrected smoothly. Raven was a mistake. A horrible tragedy that taught us the dangers of unchecked pathogen research. But those dangers exist whether I research them or not. China has labs. Russia has labs. Rogue states have labs. The only way to defend against biological warfare is to understand it intimately. Your immunity could protect millions. It was a perfect pitch, Denver realized. Enough truth mixed with lies to sound plausible. Huerta probably even believed parts of it. And if I say no, Huerta's smile didn't reach his eyes. Then you remain a homeless, unemployed engineer with no prospects and a genetic code that makes you a target for every intelligence agency on Earth. We're not the only ones looking for redemption, false survivors. Denver. At least with us, you're compensated and protected. Refuse, and you're prey. The door opened. Victoria walked in, and Denver's heart rate spiked, which the monitoring team would see, which was perfect. She wore a designer dress and carried herself with the confidence of someone who'd won. When she saw Denver, genuine surprise crossed her face. Den, what are you doing here? Victoria, Huerta said warmly. Perfect timing. Denver and I were just discussing our arrangement. I thought it would help if he heard from someone he trusts about the benefits of cooperation. Victoria looked between them, and Denver saw the calculation in her eyes. She was reading the room, adjusting her approach in real time. Denver, she said softly, sitting beside him. I know you must hate me. I know you think everything we had was fake, but it wasn't. Not all of it. She reached for his hand. He pulled away. The mission was real, yes. But the parts of us that were good, those moments were real too. Don't, Denver said, voice breaking with genuine emotion. Don't you dare. I'm sorry. I truly am. But Rex is offering you a way out. A way to turn this nightmare into something positive. You could have everything back. A home, a career, financial security. You took all that from me. I know. Victoria's eyes welled with practiced tears. And I'll spend every day making it up to you if you let me. We could even, she glanced at Huerta, who nodded. We could try again. Fix what we broke. The divorce doesn't have to be final. Denver stared at her in disbelief. This was her play, romance as a manipulation tool, exactly what Walker had predicted. They were offering him everything he'd lost, plus the woman who destroyed him, wrapped up with a bow made of lies. He let silence stretch, Let them think he was considering it. I want to see proof, he finally said. Proof that this immunity thing is real. That I'm actually valuable and not just some mark you're running another con on. Huerta smiled, pleased. Of course. I'll have my head researcher brief you. Dr. Emmanuel Osborne is the leading expert on Raven and genetic immunity responses. He can explain everything scientifically. 20 minutes later, Denver sat in a lab surrounded by screens displaying his genetic code, while a nervous man in his 50s walked him through the data. Your HLA-B variant creates antibodies that actively seek out and neutralize Raven proteins, Dr. Osborne explained, pointing to models that might as well have been alien hieroglyphics. We've never seen natural immunity like this. Synthesizing it has been impossible. The antibodies break down outside their native environment. We need fresh, living samples to even attempt replication. Living samples, Denver repeated. Like my blood. Or stem cells, yes. The process would be invasive, but not dangerous. How many samples would you need? Osborne hesitated. That depends on success rates. Potentially, indefinitely. You'd essentially become a living pharmaceutical factory. There it was. Not a one-time deal. A lifetime sentence of being harvested, kept alive and cooperative, a lab rat with a salary. And if I refuse after signing the contract? The contract includes binding arbitration clauses. Osborne stopped, looking uncomfortable. Mr. Sherman, I'm a scientist, not a negotiator. I can tell you the science is legitimate. What you do with that information is above my pay grade. Back in Huerta's office, Denver sat across from the CEO with Victoria beside him, both watching him expectantly. I need time to think, Denver said. You have 24 hours, Huerta replied. After that, the offer decreases by $1 million per day until you accept or decline. Market forces, you understand. Denver stood. I'll be in touch. Denver, Victoria said, touching his arm. He let her, forcing himself not to recoil. Please make the right choice. For both of us. He looked at her. This woman who'd shared his bed for 4 years, who knew his dreams and fears, who'd weaponized intimacy, and felt nothing but cold satisfaction. I will, he said. I promise. In the car ride back, Denver said nothing. But in his pocket, the micro-recorder had captured everything. Huerta's confession about testing him, Victoria's admission of the mission, Osborne's explanation of indefinite harvesting. Back at the safe house, the team reviewed the footage with expressions ranging from satisfaction to fury. This is gold, Paula said, replaying Huerta's monologue. We've got him admitting to conspiracy, acknowledging the divorce manipulation, confirming bioweapon research. It's not enough, Denver said quietly. They all turned to him. It's not enough, he repeated. We can arrest him, sure. But men like Huerta have lawyers who turn arrests into minor inconveniences. We need more. We need him destroyed so completely he can never recover. Him and Victoria both. Walker studied Denver. What are you thinking? I'm thinking, Denver said slowly, that we accept his offer. We get me inside Helix, and we find out exactly what they're really doing with Raven. Because I guarantee this is bigger than immunity research. That's incredibly dangerous, Ray warned. Good, Denver replied, and for the first time since his life imploded, he smiled. Let's give them what they want, and then let's take everything they have. Chapter 6, The Infiltration. Denver called Huerta the next morning. I accept your offer. All of it. The money, the job, the access, everything. But I have conditions. Huerta's voice radiated satisfaction. I'm listening. First, my father gets protection and health care for life. Real protection, not threats disguised as care. Second, Victoria and I rebuild slowly. I'm not diving back into that mess without therapy and time. Third, I want Osborne's complete research files. If I'm doing this, I'm doing it informed. Done, done, and done. Welcome aboard, Denver. I knew you'd make the right choice. The contract was rushed through in 48 hours. $10 million appeared in Denver's new account, a real account, because Huerta needed him to believe it was genuine. The Walker team confirmed the money was clean, then quietly routed it through Justice Department seizure protocols with delayed triggers. Denver moved into a luxury apartment in downtown Pleasanton, a short drive from Helix HQ. Walker's team bugged every room, but kept most surveillance passive. Too much activity would be noticed. Denver was on his own for the infiltration. His first day at Helix felt surreal. An office with a view, a title, Vice President of Immunology Engineering, and a staff who looked at him with a mixture of curiosity and jealousy. Word had spread that he was Huerta's special project, which made everyone nervous and deferential. Victoria visited his office that afternoon. "It's good to see you here," she said, maintaining careful distance. "I meant what I said about making things right." "Did you?" Denver kept his voice neutral, neither hostile nor friendly. "Or is this just phase 2 of the con?" "It's not a con. Not anymore." She sat across from his desk. "Look, I know you don't trust me. I don't blame you. But Rex is offering you a real future. I'm offering you a real relationship. Whatever you need from me to believe that, I'll do it." "Time," Denver said simply. "I need time to process that the last 4 years of my life were a lie. That my wife was a trained intelligence operative running a mission. That's not something you just get over." "I understand." Victoria stood, and for a moment, her mask slipped enough to show genuine uncertainty. "For what it's worth, Denver, I did love you. Parts of you, anyway. The kind man who brought me coffee in bed. The patient teacher who explained engineering concepts I didn't understand. That wasn't fake. I'm not good at this, at being real, but I'm trying." She left before he could respond, which was probably calculated. Denver sat alone in his new office, staring at the city below, and wondered if any part of Victoria was salvageable or if she was lies all the way down. Over the next 2 weeks, Denver embedded himself in Helix's operations. He attended meetings, reviewed research files, and most importantly, watched how the company really functioned beneath its polished exterior. What he found was worse than anyone suspected. Raven wasn't a shelved bioweapon. It was an active product line. Helix had contracts with 12 foreign governments for defensive biotech solutions, which was code for tailored pathogens with manufacturer immunities. The company was selling genocide as a service. Denver documented everything. He copied files to encrypted drives. He recorded meetings where Huerta casually discussed deployment scenarios. He mapped out the entire corporate conspiracy. But he also found something else, a classified project called Genesis, accessible only to senior leadership. Denver's credentials didn't grant access, and hacking him would triple arms. He needed to go higher. "I want to propose a new research direction," Denver told Huerta in a private meeting 3 weeks into his tenure. "Using my antibodies as a base, we could develop a broad-spectrum immunity platform, not just for Raven, but for multiple pathogens. It would revolutionize infectious disease treatment." Huerta listened with interest. "That's ambitious. What would you need?" "Access to all existing pathogen research, full laboratory clearance, and Emmanuel Osborne as a dedicated partner." "Genesis clearance," Huerta said slowly. "You understand that's extraordinarily classified? I understand that my blood is your most valuable asset, and I'm offering to maximize its potential. Unless you don't actually want me to succeed. A test." Huerta recognized it and smiled. "You're sharper than I gave you credit for, Denver. Yes, I'll grant you Genesis access. But understand, what you see either doesn't leave the building. Ever. Of course." That night, Walker's team reviewed Denver's recordings with pale faces. "Jesus Christ," Corey whispered. 12 governments. Tailored bioweapons. This isn't research, it's industrialized mass murder. And it's all classified under Pentagon contracts, Paula added, which means shutting it down will require going after people very high up the chain. Walker looked at Denver. "How deep do you want to go?" "All the way," Denver replied. "I want everyone involved exposed. I want the governments who bought this shit named. I want Huerta, Victoria, and everyone who enabled them destroyed so completely that history remembers them as monsters." "That's not justice," Ray warned. "That's war." "Good," Denver said again, "because they declared war on me first." The Genesis files were worse than nightmares. Denver spent 3 days in a classified server room, documenting research that would make war crimes tribunals weep. Modified hemorrhagic fevers, airborne rabies variants, pathogens designed to target specific ethnic genetic markers. And at the center of it all, Raven 2. An upgraded version of the original bioweapon, designed using insights from Denver's own genetic code. They've been synthesizing it for months, testing it on primates, preparing for field trials. The target location of a refugee camp in the Middle East where genetic markers match their tailored pathogen. Denver stared at the deployment timeline. 6 weeks. He called Walker immediately, using a secure line from his apartment. They're going to kill thousands of people, Denver said, voice shaking with rage. Using research based on my immunity. I'm complicit in genocide. You're not complicit, you're the witness, Walker corrected firmly. Denver, this is exactly what we needed. This proves everything. We can go to international authorities, the UN, media. That takes months. They deploy in 6 weeks. Then we work faster. Denver, you've done incredible work. But now you need to get out. We have enough to prosecute. No, Denver interrupted. We have enough to arrest, not to destroy. And I'm not leaving until Huerta and Victoria lose everything. A long pause. What are you planning? Something they taught me, Denver said coldly. You don't beat powerful people by playing fair. You beat them by being more ruthless than they are. He hung up before Walker could argue. Denver Sherman had entered Helix as bait. But somewhere in those 3 weeks of watching evil institutionalized, of seeing his own biology weaponized against innocence, he'd stopped being a victim. He'd become something else entirely. Chapter 7, The Trap. Denver requested a meeting with Rex Huerta and all Genesis senior leadership. I have a breakthrough, he told Huerta's assistant. Something that changes everything. The meeting room on the 17th floor was a shrine to corporate power, mahogany table, leather chairs, and a view that made you feel above the world. Huerta sat at the head, flanked by Emmanuel Osborne, Victoria, and 4 other executives Denver had identified as key conspirators. Denver, Huerta said warmly. You sounded excited on the phone. What have you discovered? Denver opened his laptop, connected it to the room's display system. I've been analyzing Raven 2's targeting mechanisms. I believe I can improve the delivery system by 30% efficiency. But I need approval for accelerated testing. Charts appeared on screen, complex genetic models that looked legitimate because they were just slightly modified from Osborne's own research. Accelerated testing, one executive said nervously. That would require human trials, which we've done before, Denver replied coolly. Or are we pretending the Somalia deployment in 2019 wasn't exactly that? Shocked silence. That operation was buried beneath 6 layers of classification. How do you know about Somalia? Huerta asked, voice dangerously quiet. Because I have Genesis clearance now. I've read everything. Denver met Huerta's eyes. And I understand what we're really doing here. We're not defending against bioweapons. We're making them and selling them to the highest bidder. It's brilliant, actually. Truly. And I want to help make it better. He watched their faces, confusion giving way to relief. He was playing to their greed, their belief that everyone had a price. Victoria looked troubled. Denver, I thought you want to help people. I wanted to survive, he interrupted harshly. You taught me that, V. You showed me that morality is a luxury for people who can afford it. Well, now I can afford it, and I choose profit over principles. Isn't that what you wanted? Huerta leaned back, studying Denver with new appreciation. You've surprised me again. I thought you'd need more time to understand the scope of what we're doing. I'm an engineer. I solve problems. Conscience is just another problem to solve. Denver pulled up deployment schedules. The refugee camp operation is inefficient. You're targeting 2,000 people with a pathogen that requires specific environmental conditions. I can redesign it to work in any climate, target 10,000, and leave no trace of artificial origin. We could do this anywhere. He was speaking their language now. Cold efficiency, body counts as data points. And they were eating it up. What would you need? Osborne asked, leaning forward despite himself. Full access to the Raven, 2 samples. Your latest antibody research. And I want to test my new design. Where? Denver smiled without warmth. Why waste time on refugee camps? If we want to prove capability to buyers, we need a bigger stage. Something that makes headlines. Something that proves this isn't just theory. The room went very still. What are you suggesting? Huerta asked carefully. Denver pulled up a map of the United States. A demonstration. Right here. A small town, isolated, easy to contain. We deploy, we document, we clean up. Then we sell the footage to interested parties as proof of concept. No one will connect it to us. It'll look like a natural outbreak. You're talking about attacking Americans, Victoria said, her voice sharp. That's insane. It's marketing, Denver corrected. And it's exactly what we did in Redemption Falls in 1987. You all read those files. We tested on Americans then. Why not now? Huerta stood, walked to the windows. Denver watched him process the proposal. The risk versus reward, the audacity of it, the perfect ruthlessness of using Denver's own origin story as a blueprint. You've changed, Huerta said finally. You changed me. You show me that nice guys finish homeless and broken. So I'm not nice anymore. Huerta turned, and Denver saw something new in his expression. Respect mixed with caution. This would require Pentagon approval. It's too visible otherwise. Then get it. You have contacts in defense. Use them. The meeting continued for 2 hours, Denver playing the role of a moral genius, pushing them further and further into explicit conspiracy. Every word was recorded, every admission documented. When it finally ended, Victoria caught him in the hallway. What happened to you? She demanded. The man I married would never. The man you married was a mark, Denver said coldly. You killed him. This is what grew in his place. And honestly, V, I should thank you. You taught me that manipulation works. That ruthlessness wins. So I'm applying those lessons. She stared at him, and for the first time, Denver saw something like fear in her eyes. You're scaring me. Good. Maybe you'll finally understand what it felt like to watch you destroy me. He walked away, leaving her in the hallway, and felt no satisfaction. Because this was the hardest role he'd ever played, making himself into the monster they wanted, so he could destroy them from within. That night, back at his apartment, Denver collapsed onto his couch and let the mask fall. His hands shook. His chest ached. Playing evil wasn't easy, even when you knew it was an act. Walker called 30 seconds later. That was reckless. That was necessary. They're going to prove it. They're going to plan an attack on U.S. soil and document everything. That's conspiracy, terrorism, mass murder. Charges even their lawyers can't dance around. And if they actually try to deploy, then we stop them. But Walker, we need them to commit fully. To put their names, their resources, their entire operation behind this. Only then can we destroy them completely. You're walking a very thin line, Denver. I've been walking thin lines since the day they decided to ruin my life. This is just one more. 3 days later, Huerta called an emergency meeting. Denver entered the conference room to find the entire Genesis team, plus 2 new faces, military officials in civilian clothes with badges that scream Pentagon. Denver, Huerta said, I'd like you to meet Colonel Jed Booth and Dr. Marion Weber from Defense Advanced Research Projects. They've been briefed on your proposal. Colonel Booth looked at Denver like he was a particularly interesting bug. Mr. Sherman, Rex tells me you have ambitious ideas about field testing. I have practical ideas about demonstrating capabilities to potential clients. Denver replied smoothly. Nothing happens in this industry without proof of concept. And you're comfortable with American casualties? I'm comfortable with controlled experiments that advance our strategic position. If that requires sacrifices, then yes. My mother died in a bioweapon test in 1987. I'm living proof that progress requires cost. A calculated risk, using his own tragedy to prove his commitment to their cause. He watched them process it, saw them relax. He was one of them now, damaged in the right ways, willing to do what others wouldn't. We have a location, Dr. Weber said, opening a file. A town called Morrison Falls in Nevada. Population 1,200, isolated, economically depressed. Similar to demographics to your historical data from Redemption Falls. We can stage it as a chemical spill, contain the area, and document results before implementing cleanup protocols. Denver forced himself to nod calmly, even as horror flooded his system. They were actually doing it. Planning mass murder as casually as a product launch. Timeline, he asked. 4 weeks. We fast-track Raven to production. You finalize the delivery mechanism, and we deploy on October 15th. All documentation will be classified under national security. And foreign sales? Pre-approved buyers in 6 countries. They're paying $50 million each for the deployment data. That's $300 million in confirmed contracts, plus manufacturing rights deals worth billions. Denver did the math in his head. They were selling the murder of 1,200 Americans for profit. I'm in, he said. Let's make history. After the meeting, Denver went straight to his apartment and vomited until there was nothing left. Then he called Walker. We have 4 weeks. We heard, Walker said grimly. The recording is ironclad. We have Pentagon officials conspiring to commit domestic terrorism. This goes all the way to the top. Can you stop them? Not directly, not without alerting them and losing our case. Denver, you need to get out now. We have enough. We don't have Victoria, Denver interrupted. She's been peripheral to the planning. Smart, keeping herself insulated. If I leave now, she walks away. So, Huerta goes down, the company collapses, she's finished. No, Denver said fiercely. She gets arrested. She gets a trial. She hires good lawyers, plays the victim of Huerta's manipulation, maybe serves a few years in minimum security, and comes out to write a book deal. That's not justice. What do you want? I want her destroyed the same way she destroyed me. Publicly. Humiliatingly. Completely. Denver's voice was ice. And I know how to do it. Denver. For weeks, Walker. Trust me, for 4 more weeks. Then we end all of them. The next morning, Denver invited Victoria to dinner. She accepted hesitantly, probably viewing it as an opportunity to assess his disturbing transformation. They met at an upscale restaurant overlooking the bay. Victoria wore a blue dress that Denver remembered buying her for their 2nd anniversary. Another calculated choice. You wanted to talk? She asked after they ordered. I wanted to apologize, Denver said, for being cold lately. This whole situation, it's been a lot. I understand. Do you? He leaned forward. Because I've been thinking about what you said. About parts of us being real. About trying again. Victoria's expression shifted. Hope warring with suspicion. You have. The divorce isn't final yet. We have 3 months before it's permanent. What if? He let vulnerability show, a crack in his ruthless armor. What if we used that time? Really tried? The man you married is gone, V. But maybe the man I'm becoming could love you differently. Without the weakness. Denver. She reached for his hand. I don't want you to change who you are just to. I'm not changing for you. I'm changing because I finally understand how the world works. Power, money, influence, that's what matters. Morality is a cage. You helped free me from it. He squeezed her hand. Let me show you who I can be now. Let us be partners in everything, not just this job. He saw her calculating, weighing risks and benefits. But he also saw genuine emotion, surprise, maybe even real affection for this darker version of him. Okay, she said finally, but slowly. No pressure, no expectations. We rebuild as equals. Equals, Denver agreed. Partners in all things. Over the next 3 weeks, Denver and Victoria became a couple again, at least publicly. They attended company events together. They worked on Raven 2 together. Denver shared classified information with her, brought her deeper into Genesis operations, and made her complicit in every aspect of the Morrison Falls plan. And he documented everything. Every meeting where she approved deployment strategies. Every conversation where she discussed casualties as acceptable losses. Every moment where she revealed herself as a willing participant in mass murder. Walker watched nervously from the sidelines. You're falling for her again. No, Denver said flatly. I'm making sure she has no defense. No claim of coercion or ignorance. When this ends, Victoria Welch will be exposed as exactly what she is. A calculating sociopath who chose evil over and over again. And if she's armed when it all comes down? Denver smiled coldly. Then I hope her training was better than mine. October 14th arrived. Morrison Falls was prepped. Military perimeter disguised as CDC contamination protocols, media blackout, evacuation routes planned. Raven, 2 was synthesized and loaded into aerosol dispersal units. Everything was ready. Huerta called a final coordination meeting. The entire conspiracy gathered: executives, military officers, foreign buyers on secure video links, and Denver Sherman sitting at the table like he belonged there. "Tomorrow, we make history," Huerta said, raising a glass of champagne. "To progress. To progress," everyone echoed. Denver raised his glass, met Victoria's eyes across the table, and smiled. "Tomorrow, he make history all right. Just not the kind they expected." Chapter 8. The Reckoning. October 15th dawned clear and cold. Denver arrived at Helix headquarters at 5 a.m., while the sun was still a promise on the horizon. The building hummed with anticipation. Today was deployment day, and everyone involved knew they were crossing a line that couldn't be uncrossed. He went to his office, locked the door, and sent a single encrypted message to Walker: "Execute." Now, at 6 a.m., as Helix senior leadership gathered in the Genesis control room to monitor deployment, the building's main entrance exploded inward. Not literally, no bombs, no violence. Just 50 FBI agents in tactical gear flooding through every door simultaneously, followed by DOJ officials, military police, and a swarm of federal marshals. Rex Huerta looked up from the control screens in confusion. What? His office door burst open. Irving Walker strode in, flanked by armed agents, holding up credentials and an arrest warrant. "Rex Huerta, you're under arrest for a conspiracy to commit domestic terrorism, violations of the Biological Weapons Convention, murder conspiracy, and about 40 other charges we'll get to eventually. Put your hands on the table." The room erupted in chaos. Executives shouted about lawyers. Military officers tried to invoke classified status. Foreign buyers on video screens cut their connections in panic. Victoria stared at Denver across the room. He watched her put it together: the recording devices, the manipulation, the role he'd been playing. Her face went white. "You," she whispered. "This whole time?" "Yeah," Denver said quietly. "Me." She lunged across the table at him, rage overriding training. Denver sidestepped easily. He'd been expecting it. FBI agents tackled her to the ground, cuffing her while she screamed profanity and threats. "Victoria Welch," Paula Calhoun said, appearing beside Denver with a predatory smile, "you're under arrest for espionage, conspiracy, fraud, and conspiracy to commit terrorism. You have the right to remain silent, which I strongly suggest you exercise." Huerta, hands now cuffed, looked at Denver with something like admiration. "You played me. All of it was an act." "Not all of it," Denver replied. "The part where you destroyed my life? That was real. The part where I wanted revenge? Also real. Everything else? Yeah, that was acting. You'll never make these charges stick. My lawyers will be busy defending you against evidence so overwhelming that even they'll suggest a plea bargain." Walker nodded to an agent, who began reading Huerta his rights. "We have 3 weeks of recordings, 47 witnesses, documented deployment plans, international weapons sales, and the kicker? Pentagon officials on tape conspiring to commit mass murder. You didn't just break laws, Rex. You broke so many laws we had to create new categories for the charges." As they led Huerta out, Denver followed. The building was swarming with federal agents now, boxing up servers, seizing files, arresting anyone with Genesis clearance. It was beautiful chaos, a meticulously planned takedown that left no one unaccounted for. Outside, news vans were already gathering. Walker had tipped them off, carefully, with enough information to create feeding frenzy without compromising the investigation. "Denver," Walker said quietly as they watched Huerta and Victoria being loaded into separate vehicles. "How do you feel? Ask me in a week." The next days were a media explosion. The story had everything: bioweapons, corporate conspiracy, a vengeful husband who infiltrated his ex-wife's criminal organization, Pentagon corruption, international weapons deals. It dominated every news cycle. Denver gave exactly one interview, carefully stage-managed by Walker and the DOJ. He sat across from a respected journalist and told his story: the divorce, the destruction, the discovery of his immunity, and his decision to help bring down the people who'd ruined his life. "Do you feel like a hero?" the journalist asked. "No," Denver said honestly. "I feel like someone who got pushed too far and pushed back. I'm not special. I just got angry enough to act." The interview was viewed 40 million times in 3 days. Public opinion swung heavily in Denver's favor. He was the everyman victim who'd fought back against impossible odds. David versus Goliath, but with better intel and FBI backing. Victoria and Huerta's trials were scheduled separately. Huerta's was first, and Denver attended every day of the 3-week proceedings. He watched as prosecutors laid out the conspiracy in excruciating detail. He saw Huerta's lawyers try every defense: classified national security, plausible deniability, acting under Pentagon orders. None of it worked. The evidence was overwhelming. Recordings of Huerta explicitly ordering Raven to deployment. Financial records showing weapons sales to foreign governments. Testimonies from Dover and other insiders who'd flipped to save themselves. And Denver's testimony, calm, detailed, devastating. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Huerta's sentencing was scheduled for 2 months later. But before it could occur, he suffered a massive stroke in his cell. Not surprising for a 67-year-old man under extreme stress. He survived, but the damage left him partially paralyzed and unable to speak clearly. Denver felt no satisfaction watching Huerta wheeled into court for sentencing, a shell of the powerful man who destroyed so many lives. But he felt something close to it when the judge sentenced him to life without parole in a federal maximum security facility. "Mr. Huerta," the judge said, looking at the broken man with cold eyes, "you weaponized science itself. You sold death to the highest bidder. You planned to murder American citizens for profit. There is no punishment sufficient for your crimes, but I'll settle for ensuring you never harm anyone again." Huerta was wheeled out. Denver never saw him again. Victoria's trial was different. Worse, in ways Denver hadn't anticipated. Her lawyers played the manipulation card hard. She'd been a troubled veteran, recruited by Huerta, coerced into operations she didn't fully understand. They painted Denver as an unreliable witness with a personal vendetta. They claimed the intimate recordings of her discussing deployment plans were taken out of context. It almost worked. Then Denver's legal team played their trump card, Victoria's service record, including the incident that had gotten her discharged. She'd been selling classified information not because she was coerced, but because she was a habitual criminal who'd never stopped. They brought in her previous victims, 6 men she'd seduced, used, and destroyed in various intelligence operations. Men whose lives had been ruined the same way Denver's had been. The defense collapsed. Victoria was convicted on 19 counts. At sentencing, she was given 25 years in federal prison, no parole. Denver attended that sentencing too. When Victoria was let in, she looked directly at him. No tears, no pleas, just cold acknowledgement. "I underestimated you," she said before being led away. "That was my mistake." "No," Denver replied. "Your mistake was thinking I'd stay broken. That was always your mistake." Chapter 9. The After. 6 months after the trials, Denver stood in his father's garden in Sacramento, watching the old man prune roses that his late wife had planted. "You did good, son," Arthur Sherman said, not looking up from his work. "Your mother would be proud. I destroyed lives. You destroyed people who destroyed others. There's a difference." Arthur finally looked at him, weathered face kind. "You think your mother didn't have nightmares about redemption falls? About surviving when others died? But she didn't let it break her. She built a life, raised a son, made something good from tragedy. That's what you're doing now." Denver thought about that. The money from his Helix contract had been seized as proceeds of crime, but the government had compensated him. $5 million for his role in the investigation, plus full reinstatement of his professional reputation. Companies were calling with job offers. He'd even been approached about a book deal, which he'd refused. "I don't want to profit from this," he'd told the publisher. "People died because of what Huerta did. I was just lucky enough to survive and fight back." But he had kept one thing: his apartment, paid for with legitimate earnings from his 2 months at Helix. and he'd move his father into the second bedroom, partly for company, partly for protection. Old paranoia dying hard. Walker visited occasionally, always with updates. The Pentagon investigation was ongoing. Several high-ranking officials had been arrested. More were under investigation. Raven, 2 had been destroyed under international supervision. Helix Biosolutions had been dissolved, its assets seized and sold. You changed bioweapon security policy worldwide, Walker told him during one visit. 15 countries have implemented new oversight protocols because of what you exposed. You've saved lives. I didn't do it to save lives, Denver admitted. I did it for revenge. Revenge and justice aren't always different things. Sometimes they just look the same from different angles. Denver started teaching, adjunct professor at UC Davis, instructing biomedical engineering students. He liked it more than he expected. The students were eager, idealistic, believing they could change the world. He hoped they could. Someone needed to. Paula Calhoun tracked him down at a campus coffee shop one afternoon. I have something you should see. She showed him a tablet displaying a news article. Victoria Welch had been attacked in prison, a fight with another inmate over something trivial. She'd suffered injuries that would leave permanent scars. The article included her mugshot, hollow-eyed, bruised, looking nothing like the confident woman who destroyed him. Thought you want to know? Paula said. Denver stared at the photo and felt nothing. No satisfaction, no pity, no emotion at all. She made choices, he said finally. We all do. She made bad ones, and she's living with consequences. That's how it should work. You're more forgiving than I expected. I'm not forgiving. I'm just done. She took 4 years of my life. I'm not giving her any more. He closed the tablet and went back to grading papers. 1 year after the trial, Denver received an unexpected visitor. Emmanuel Osborne, the Helix researcher who'd explained his immunity, now worked for the CDC developing legitimate vaccines. Mr. Sherman, Osborne said nervously, I wanted to apologize. I knew what Huerta was doing, and I looked away because the research was fascinating. I told myself it was for science, but really I was just a coward. You testified at the trial, Denver pointed out. That took courage. Too little, too late. Osborne handed him a folder. But maybe this helps. I've been working with international researchers on a vaccine platform using synthetic variants of your antibodies. Not harvesting you, we'd never do that, but studying the mechanisms and replicating them ethically. We're close to something that could protect against multiple hemorrhagic fevers. Denver opened the folder, saw complex research that would actually save lives. You're asking for my blessing? I'm asking for forgiveness. And for permission to publish you as a case study, anonymously if you prefer. Your immunity could help millions, Denver. Not as a weapon, as a cure. Denver thought about his mother, about redemption falls, about all the death that had sprouted from his genetic code. Publish it. Use my real name. If people are going to survive because of what I am, they deserve to know the whole story, the bad and the good. Osborne shook his hand, tears in his eyes. Thank you. 2 years after everything fell apart, Denver Sherman sat in his office at UC Davis, preparing for class. His phone buzzed. A text from his father. Made your favorite dinner. Be home by 6. He smiled. Home. Such a simple word, but it had meant nothing for so long. A knock on his door pulled him from his thoughts. A young woman stood there, mid-20s, nervous, carrying a research proposal. Professor Sherman? I'm June Munoz, master's student. I was hoping to discuss my thesis with you. Come in. He gestured to a chair. She sat, opened her laptop. I'm studying genetic immunity responses to emerging pathogens. I know about your history, about redemption falls and Helix. I wanted to ask, do you regret what happened? An honest question. Denver considered it carefully. I regret that evil people forced me into situations where I had to become someone I didn't recognize. I regret the time wasted, the pain caused, the innocence lost. But regret what I did? No. Evil unchallenged grows. Someone had to stop them. He leaned forward. But here's what I've learned. Revenge is satisfying for about 10 minutes. Then you're just left with yourself. The real victory isn't destroying your enemies. It's building something better from the wreckage they leave behind. June nodded slowly. That's That's actually what my thesis is about. Using your immunity research to develop broad-spectrum vaccines. Building something good from tragedy. Then I'd love to help. Show me what you're working on. They spent the next hour discussing her research. Brilliant work, hopeful work, the kind of science that saved lives instead of ending them. After she left, Denver stood at his office window, watching students cross the campus. He thought about the man he'd been 2 years ago, broken, desperate, selling his blood for $60. He thought about the man he'd become in those dark weeks at Helix, playing monster to catch monsters. And he thought about the man he was now, professor, survivor, someone who'd walked through hell and come out carrying lessons instead of just scars. His phone buzzed again. Not his father this time. Walker, with a simple message. Final conviction just came through. Pentagon officials sentenced. It's done. Truly done. Denver typed back. Good. Drink some time. Anytime. You earned it. He pocketed his phone, grabbed his coat, and headed for the door. 5:30 traffic meant he'd just make it home by 6. His father would have made pot roast, probably, with those roasted vegetables Denver loved. Simple pleasures. Normal life. The things he'd lost and fought tooth and nail to reclaim. As he walked to his car, Denver Sherman felt something he hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not the absence of pain. He'd carry those scars forever. But the knowledge that he'd faced the worst humanity could offer and refuse to break. He'd been tested by fire and forged into someone stronger. Victoria was in prison. Huerta was dying in a cell. The conspiracy was destroyed. The bioweapon was neutralized. The innocent were protected. And Denver Sherman, the homeless man who'd sold his blood, the victim who'd been destroyed, the weapon that turned on his creators, was going home to his father's pot roast and tomorrow's lecture on ethical bioengineering. He'd won. Not perfectly, not cleanly, not without cost. But he'd won. And that, he thought as he drove through the Sacramento sunset, was enough. The end. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.